Daniel was the kind of man people passed by without noticing. Every morning before the sun even rose, he walked quietly into the tall glass building where hundreds of employees worked. His uniform was always neat, his steps quiet, and his eyes kind. He pushed his cleaning cart down the long, shiny halls, making sure every floor sparkled before the first worker arrived. He never complained, never asked for more, and never showed any sign of frustration. To everyone in the office, he was just the janitor. But behind those calm eyes and gentle smile, Daniel carried a world of stories that no one ever cared to ask about. He had worked at the company for almost 6 years. In all that time, he had seen people come and go. New interns full of excitement, managers in a rush, and executives walking with confidence as if the building belonged to them. Daniel greeted everyone with a polite good morning, but most only nodded without even looking at him. That didn't bother him. He had learned long ago that respect doesn't always come from titles or money. Sometimes it comes from knowing who you are deep inside, even if no one else does. His small janitor's closet was filled with mops, buckets, and cleaning supplies, but tucked away in the corner was something unexpected: a stack of old books written in different languages. During his lunch breaks, when the building grew quiet, Daniel would sit on an upturned bucket and read. He read about history, poetry, and science, switching between French, Spanish, and Arabic like it was the most natural thing in the world. But no one ever saw that side of him. When someone walked by, he quickly closed the book and pretended to check his cleaning schedule. It wasn't shame that made him hide it, it was experience. Life had taught him that sometimes people judge too quickly to see the truth. Daniel's life hadn't always been like this. Years ago, he was a respected professor in his home country. He had taught linguistics at a well-known university, helping students master different languages. But when political unrest shook his homeland, everything he had built vanished overnight. His university shut down, his home was lost, and his papers proving his education were destroyed. When he came to this new country, he couldn't find work in his field. Without proper documents, no one believed his story. So he took the first job he could get, as a janitor in a big corporate office. Even though his work was simple, Daniel treated it with care and dignity. He believed that every job, no matter how small, deserved respect. He cleaned the CEO's office, dusted awards, and polished nameplates that displayed people's success stories. Sometimes he wondered if anyone would ever know his story. The story of a man who once taught 9 languages but now mopped floors in silence. Yet he never let bitterness grow inside him. He smiled every day, knowing that life had not taken away his knowledge, only changed his path. The employees often chatted around him, never realizing he understood every word, not just in their language but in several others. Once he overheard 2 visiting businessmen speaking French about how tired they were of being ignored by the staff. Daniel wanted to greet them to make them feel welcome, but he stopped himself. People often felt strange when someone they underestimated surprised them. So he stayed quiet, just nodding politely as he emptied their trash bins. There was one person who noticed him, though, an older receptionist named Linda. She often brought him tea and asked about his day. She sensed there was something more to him, something he didn't show. Sometimes she'd find him reading a book in another language and smile knowingly. "You're too smart for this place, Daniel," she'd say softly. He would only smile and reply, "I'm right where I need to be." His nights were quiet. After work, he'd go home to a small apartment on the edge of the city. The walls were bare, the furniture simple, but it was peaceful. He spent hours writing letters in different languages, practicing his vocabulary, and translating poems from one language to another just for fun. Words were his world, his safe place. He believed that every language carried a piece of humanity, a bridge between hearts, and that one day that knowledge would mean something again. Still, there were moments when Daniel felt invisible. He often walked through the bustling office during meetings, hearing laughter, plans, and achievements being discussed. Sometimes he paused, looking through the glass walls of the boardroom, seeing men and women in expensive suits making decisions. He didn't envy them, but a small part of him wondered what it would feel like to be seen again, to be valued not for what he cleaned, but for what he knew. Every day passed the same way, quiet, routine, unnoticed. Until one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Daniel was cleaning near the main conference room when he heard a commotion. A group of foreign clients had arrived, but no one could understand their language. The staff were confused, the translators were delayed, and tension filled the air. Daniel paused, holding his mop, watching the scene unfold. He could have walked away. After all, it wasn't his problem. But something inside him told him to step forward. He took a slow breath, walked up to the group, and spoke, fluently, confidently, and respectfully, in their language. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him, including the CEO, who happened to be passing by. In that moment, Daniel wasn't invisible anymore. The quiet janitor had just revealed a side of himself that no one in that building had ever imagined. And what happened after that moment would soon leave the entire office stunned. The office was unusually loud that afternoon. A group of international clients had arrived earlier than expected, and confusion spread like wildfire. The front desk staff struggled to communicate with them, flipping through translation apps and speaking broken English that only made things worse. The clients looked frustrated, the employees embarrassed, and the air was thick with tension. Everyone waited for someone, anyone, to fix the situation. Daniel was quietly mopping near the glass doors, pretending not to notice the chaos. He had seen this kind of scene before. Important people rushing around, voices rising, and managers trying to look in control. But this time something made him pause. He heard one of the clients speaking softly in French, trying to explain their problem. The others switched to Italian, then Spanish, desperately trying to make themselves understood. To Daniel, their words were clear, like music. He hesitated for a moment, his hands tightening on the mop handle. He told himself to stay out of it, that it wasn't his place. But then, a woman from the reception turned to him in frustration and muttered, "I wish someone here spoke their language." Daniel took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Maybe I can help," he said quietly. The room went silent. The receptionist blinked at him, confused. "You?" she asked. Daniel nodded politely and turned toward the clients. With a calm smile, he greeted them, in perfect French. Their eyes widened instantly. Then, as one of the clients switched to Spanish, Daniel responded fluently, as if he had lived in Madrid his entire life. When another asked a question in Mandarin, he answered smoothly again, leaving everyone speechless. The CEO, Mr. Harrison, had just stepped out of his office when he noticed the scene. He froze, watching his janitor, carry on an intelligent conversation with people from 3 different countries, switching between languages as easily as breathing. The confusion that had filled the lobby moments ago was replaced by stunned silence, and then polite laughter as the clients relaxed, finally understanding everything they needed. When the conversation ended, the clients shook Daniel's hand gratefully, thanking him for his help before leaving. The staff clapped awkwardly, still trying to process what they had witnessed. Mr. Harrison, still standing nearby, walked up to Daniel. "How many languages do you speak?" he asked, half smiling, half disbelieving. Daniel looked slightly embarrassed. 9, he said softly. The CEO blinked, thinking he had misheard. 9, he repeated. Daniel nodded humbly, as if it was no big deal. Mr. Harrison didn't know what to say. He had walked past this man 100 times, maybe more, and never once looked beyond his uniform. And now, here he was, standing in front of a man who could speak more languages than most diplomats. For the first time, the CEO looked at Daniel not as a janitor, but as a person. Word spread through the office faster than wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone was whispering about the janitor who could speak 9 languages. Some laughed in disbelief, others were amazed, and a few felt guilty for the way they had ignored him for years. Daniel, on the other hand, went back to work as if nothing had happened. He finished mopping, checked his supply cart, and quietly returned to his routine. Later that evening, the CEO called Daniel into his office. It was the first time Daniel had ever stepped inside. The room was big, filled with awards, pictures, and books that reflected success and power. Mr. Harrison gestured for him to sit, but Daniel remained standing respectfully. "I have to ask," the CEO began, "how did a man like you end up here?" Daniel smiled softly, his eyes distant as if remembering another life. "I used to be a linguistics professor," he said. "Back home I taught languages at a university. But when my country went through a war, I lost everything. My home, my job, even my papers. I came here hoping to start over. This was the only job I could find." Mr. Harrison leaned back, speechless. He didn't know what shocked him more, the story or Daniel's calmness in telling it. And you never told anyone? He finally asked. There was no reason to, Daniel said simply. This job gave me stability. I didn't want anyone to think I was better than them. I just wanted peace, the CEO nodded slowly, humbled. He had built a company on ambition and power, believing success came from competition and control. But here was a man who had lost everything, yet carried himself with grace, wisdom, and humility. For the first time in years, Mr. Harrison felt small, but in a good way. After Daniel left, the CEO sat in silence for a long time. He thought about how many people he had overlooked, how often he had judged someone by their job title or appearance. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's quiet brilliance, the kind that doesn't need attention or reward, only respect. The next morning, Mr. Harrison arrived early. He called his management team for a private meeting and told them about Daniel's story. We've had talent sitting under our noses this whole time, he said, and we never even looked. They agreed something had to be done, something meaningful. Meanwhile, Daniel continued working, unaware that his life was about to change forever. He was just doing what he always did, keeping the building clean, greeting people with a smile, and reading his books during breaks. He didn't know that his moment of kindness, stepping forward to help a few confused clients, had opened a door that would lead him back to the world he once belonged to, a world where his knowledge and passion would finally be seen again. The janitor who spoke 9 languages had unknowingly changed not only his own life but also the mindset of an entire office. And the CEO who once thought he had seen it all was about to make a decision that would leave everyone speechless. Mr. Harrison couldn't get Daniel's words out of his mind. That night, as he sat in his quiet office long after everyone had left, he replayed the moment over and over again, the janitor switching languages with ease, his calm voice guiding the lost clients, and that humble smile when he admitted 9. It didn't make sense. How could someone so gifted end up pushing a mop in the corner of his company? The next morning, when Daniel came in early as usual, he found an envelope resting on his cart. Inside was a short note written in elegant handwriting. Please come to my office when you have a moment. Harrison. Daniel hesitated before knocking on the CEO's door. He was nervous. He wasn't used to being noticed by people at that level. When he entered, Mr. Harrison greeted him warmly and gestured for him to sit. I wanted to know more about you, the CEO said. Your story moved me. Daniel smiled politely. There isn't much to tell, sir. Oh, I think there's plenty, Harrison replied, leaning forward. How does a man who speaks 9 languages end up cleaning offices? Daniel sighed softly. His eyes seemed to hold years of silence and pain. I was a professor once, he began. Back home, I taught linguistics. I had students, books, a family. Then everything changed. My country fell into chaos. Universities were closed and many of us had to flee. I came here hoping to rebuild, but without my documents, my qualifications meant nothing. The CEO listened quietly, his chest tightening as Daniel spoke. He had never imagined the janitor sweeping his hallways was once a respected academic. So you started over, Harrison said quietly. Yes, Daniel nodded. It wasn't easy, but work is work. I'm grateful to have something steady, even if it's simple. I get to observe people, hear their languages, their stories. I still learn every day. There was no bitterness in Daniel's voice, only peace. It struck Mr. Harrison deeply. He thought about all the employees who complained about small inconveniences, while this man had lost everything and still carried gratitude in his heart. After a pause, the CEO said, Would you come to the boardroom with me? There's something I'd like to show you. Daniel followed him, unsure what to expect. When they entered, the room was empty except for a large world map pinned to the wall. Mr. Harrison pointed to it and said, Our company is expanding overseas. We've been struggling with language barriers and cultural training. I can't think of anyone better to help us with that than you. Daniel blinked, not understanding. Sir, are you suggesting? Yes, Harrison interrupted, smiling. I want you to lead our global communication training program. Teach our staff, guide our managers, help us connect with people across cultures. You have a gift, Daniel. It's time we stop wasting it. For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. His eyes welled up with emotion. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say yes, the CEO said gently. You've earned it. The following week, the entire office gathered for a company meeting. No one knew what it was about. Rumors had been swirling ever since the language incident. When Mr. Harrison took the stage, Daniel stood off to the side, his uniform freshly ironed. Still not quite believing this was real, the CEO addressed the crowd. "Every day we walk past people without really seeing them," he began. "We make judgments based on what they do, not who they are. But recently, someone reminded me that talent, intelligence, and kindness can be found in the most unexpected places." He paused and gestured toward Daniel. "This man right here speaks 9 languages. He has taught at universities. He's lived through things most of us couldn't imagine, and he's been quietly working among us all these years. From today, Daniel will no longer be our janitor. He will be our new global communications trainer." The room erupted in applause. Some people gasped in surprise. Others cheered, clapping louder as Daniel stepped forward shyly. For the first time, every pair of eyes in that building was on him, not with pity but with admiration. Daniel gave a small speech, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I've learned that respect is a language we all understand," he said. "It doesn't matter where we come from or what we do. Everyone has a story worth hearing. Thank you for listening to mine." The applause grew louder. Some employees even had tears in their eyes. From that day forward, Daniel's life changed, but so did the company's spirit. Employees began greeting one another differently. People started asking questions, sharing stories, and breaking down the invisible walls that had existed between titles and departments. The janitor's humility had done what no corporate policy ever could. It had brought humanity back into the workplace. As for Mr. Harrison, he often told new hires, "Never underestimate the person walking beside you. They might just be a genius in disguise." And every time he saw Daniel teaching a group of employees how to greet partners in Japanese or explain ideas in Spanish, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Because sometimes, it takes a quiet man with a mop and a mind full of wisdom to remind the powerful that greatness doesn't shout. It speaks gently, in 9 languages, with kindness at its core.